Welcome to Season 4 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation. Welcome back. It has been a while since we have got to do a new episode of Lead with Coffee. It's been a whirlwind. We've had construction going on in our office above us, and it makes doing podcasting a little more challenging. So it's been crazy. But today we want to catch back up, and we thought there is so much going on in the world today, and we thought we'd just go off script for the podcast, let you know what we're up to, what we're thinking about, whether it's business, side hustles, politics if we feel like it, little bit of everything, and personal, and just what's impacting us today. It's a fun, easy podcast, and I have a feeling that some of the things we're going through, you probably are too. But I promise there will be no talk of a pandemic.
You just did. Yeah, it has been a little crazy. Literally right above us, they've been doing demo for the last 4 weeks and started reframing, and you can hear everything. So the thought of doing a podcast wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to end well.
The irony is we own a construction management company, and we have a team, including ourselves, complaining daily about the noise from the construction. It really is entertaining. So I'm going to start. The barn, San Diego. Man, in a 6-week period, we have launched the business of the barn, San Diego, which is super exciting because it was this kind of dream, a quiet dream when we started the podcast 2 years ago. And now we have a business name. We have a full functioning farm in our backyard. David's referring to me as Farmer Sarah. And well, that must mean Farmer David is enjoying the ride too, because a lot of it involves you.
Ranch hand, David.
Ranch hand. So we have been on a journey. So I did the digital course through Floret. If you have not ever heard of Floret, again, if you have a chance and you have Discovery Plus and Magnolia Channel, Floret is an amazing 4-part series of just what it's like to own and operate a small business, and what the world says you should become, and the magnitude that you can have when the world says you should expand, and their decisions to stay small and stay in their niche and where they're comfortable. And by small, it probably is still a $10 million business at this point. But so I did the digital course, and then the dream really started to come into shape, and we now have a full farm for a cut flower farm, and we are kind of laughing our way through it. As you know, I get an idea, we adapt it to work for what's happening on our 1/4 acre plot that we're playing around with. And the most recent was my idea to go buy a rototiller, and that it was just going to be easy and no big deal. Oh my gosh. So this rototiller, it doesn't outweigh me, but it outpowers me. And we got that thing started, and my oldest and I turned it on, and the dirt was so hard that the blades did not even go into the dirt. And I ended up chasing this thing across the backyard while he's laughing and I'm laughing. And, you know, good news is we figured it out. But this is just all part of just saying, like, I'm all in. I got to figure out what this is like. I got to figure out what grows, what doesn't grow. I got to be okay with failure. I've already torn up, you know, a whole bed of seeds that nothing sprouted on. And I don't know. What's the journey like for you?
Well, it's been a vision of yours for such a long time. I mean, we've been talking about this, and we've talked about it on the podcast that we were going to buy a big plot of land and create the barn in San Diego. But then a year ago, which we'll give some updates on too, we bought a house that just happens to have at least 1/4 of an acre that's just dirt or weeds with some gophers. and all the other animals, squirrels, rabbits that are out there. But it's just been the perfect location to build this, and so we just went for it. Yeah, I mean, the work isn't difficult, but it's time consuming.
It's really time consuming. I mean, I think starting any new business is really, it's fun to be the dreamer and the creative. It's really hard to be the implementer, especially when you're talking about something like farming, which we don't farm.
Right.
We went from a couple of raised beds at our old house to 6 raised beds that are 12 feet long by 4 feet long, arches, and, now rototilling like 100 square foot of area to just test plants in our soil to see what even grows, with the intent that you're going to sell this and figure out how to produce this for market and how to, build your business model so that your sales can come in even on year one. And what does that look like when literally I'm looking at a box that I put seeds in 30 days ago and I have like grass coming up and it's like, is that a plant? What is this? What's going on? And I know it's coming, but it's just one of those things where patience, this is a test of patience. God gave me like the hardest job. Gave me a love for flowers, but not an ability to have patience to grow them. So I'm not going to quit, but it's a fun journey.
No, you're not going to quit.
I think the business side of it is where most people can get stuck. So going out and setting up your fictitious business name and starting to build your sales plan and your business plan and just the investment. There's a lot of money that gets invested when you start a business, and you don't want to go into debt. So you're really working at the pace you can afford to go, and knowing that there is an investment. And year one, you're not going to have huge returns. But man, it is fun. So we spent our weekend watching some YouTube videos of how to build arches out of cattle guards and T-posts. And Dave is a trooper. Off to Tractor Supply we go to buy all these things. And it's so funny because the people that are there shopping next to us happen to be building the same thing. And they're like, did you watch that on YouTube? It's like, we sure did. But what I like is that we are in the educational realm. And so we are documenting this. We're documenting the progress from just dirt to a small micro farm. We're going to release videos of how we're doing it. And we're already gaining a lot of traction of people that are like, how did you build that? And how did you engineer that? And what does that look like? Because it's unique and it's working for us. And I think that there's something for others to glean off of it. So continuing that mindset of leadership, of how do you lead other people to either follow what you're doing that's working or to say like, hey, don't do this because you're going to have a full bed full of dead plants.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the continuous process. Some of the stuff's going to be very successful and some of it's going to fail. And I think that's just like anything else in life. You're going to go after several different things. Some of them are going to work out and some of them aren't. And you just move on to the next opportunity. I think that we've made huge progress. I mean, these beds all have irrigation and drip line, and going through that whole process of not dialing the pressure down enough, and the
exploding hoses.
The ends are popping off, and it's an adventure, but it's fun. And I've seen more joy in you over this last month and a half than I have in a while through the pandemic and everything else that has been hard in life. This has certainly brought you joy, and that's fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that for many business leaders, we are consumed by, taking care of something that someone else owns most of the time. David happens to own this business that we work in, but there's something also about starting something fresh, and it's a passion, and that freedom to dive into something and learn something new that excites you. And I never thought it would be this, coming from just a love of flowers to I'm going to build this and grow it. And I have a dream that's so much bigger than this little cut flower farm. But these are the small steps that I have to take now. So when I can get to the place where I own the land and the event center, that this little patch of flowers is going to produce heavily for me when weddings or events are there because I don't have to go buy it. I've grown it now, and I've figured out how to market something. In a market, by the way, that is exploding, the flower industry and gardening, man, just go to your local Home Depot and you're going to see how many people are out there trying to grow their own food at this point, or just provide for themselves in a world where so much just can change on you. And I think as we are just talking about what's on our mind, like the cost of goods, and it's crazy when you go to the store and what you used to buy for $100 is now $175 to $200 for the same. You're just looking at your cart like, what happened here, right?
Right, and when you're trying to feed 3 teenage boys, there's no real good place to cut.
No, and they're meat eaters. But they're going to learn to like the zucchini and the cucumbers, and we're going to have a lot of salsa. We're making something. But
before you move on, I do want to just say this about the bar in San Diego. Just like any other dream you have a dream that's going to continue and grow to this land and this event center. But you had to start, and you stepped into it. You thought about it for a while, but then you just went for it. And I think that that's just a good reminder for all of us. If we have a passion for something, we can keep talking about it and thinking about it. But until you really step into it, you're not going to know what you're missing out on. And is it going to be easy? No, it's not easy. But you're going to learn so much on the way. And, we've talked about it before. It's more about the journey than the destination. So what you're going to experience and what you're going through until you have that plot of land in the event center and the experiences that happen once you have that, the whole portion of this journey is going to be incredible to watch. And thanks for bringing me along.
My ranch hand. You know what resonates with me as I think about kind of the principles of what I'm doing with the barn is a quote that spend your weekends building the life you want versus escaping the life you have.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm building, and that's what we're doing. We're building this life that's ours in a home that is ours and on land that seemed like God made it there just for something beautiful to be planted on it. And, the analogy of just let's plant some seeds and watch something grow. And this was something that was planted in me, in my heart years ago, and now we're watching it grow physically. Yeah. And so I think just that symbolism of saying to myself more than anything of like, you're strong enough to start this and to keep moving through this, and the reality of the rototiller is so much like starting a business, right? You're just going to like start this thing and you think it's going to work, and really you're just like chasing it as it's running away. You're hanging on for dear life. Yeah, because you have so many dreams and goals, and it's like, okay, I have all these aspirations, and then it's like, I have to go this way to start the business. I have to go this way to figure out the financials. I have to go this way to actually learn what I'm doing. I have to go this way, and it's just like all these roads, and which one do you take and which steps are first? And there are a million ways to do it. But like David was saying, it's like one small step at a time. And for me, I've run other people's businesses for 20 years. And so this is just fun to just say like, I'm just stepping in, and I don't have to have it perfectly defined. Yeah. But what I have to do first is see what grows.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to grow in that same process.
So I think if you're interested, if this is intriguing to you, check her out online.
Yeah. So we're following the journey on Instagram on the Barn SD. So check that out. And eventually it will expand out to some videos with my ranch hand.
Perfect.
How to be a farmhand. What else is on your mind?
Well, I think since we did talk about it a little bit, let's just give a house update. It's been exactly 1 year since we made an offer, right?
Crazy. Yes.
Yeah, a lot has changed. We've been in the house since June.
Since our first offer got rejected.
It's our first. And if you haven't heard our previous podcasts, Sarah and I, be 11 years that we're married, and this was our first major purchase together as a couple. We are a blended family, and we've been together for 13, 14 years, married for almost 11. We bought cars and that type of thing, but this is like the first major purchase together, and it was the first major thing that we could call our own.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only was it a bigger and beautiful house for our kids to each have their own room and have room to breathe, and it's created this great plot of land for the barn, but it's just so comfortable and just like so meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not something that we knew that we needed because we were content where we were, but we knew that it was, with our boys growing faster than the prices of gas going up, we knew we needed to make a change. And looking back, I'm so glad we took that risk and stepped into it, because it has been such an absolute blessing for our family.
Yeah, it's still like a pinch me moment when I pull in the driveway and it's like, this is our home, and it still feels like yesterday when we walked through that front door and had nothing in the house and had pizza and champagne on the steps by the pool on our first night there with the kids, and just talked about like what this life was going to look like, knowing that we were in a lot of transition at the time, with a lot of endings and a lot of beginnings with the boys. And a year later, these kids they are so settled. This has been like a dream for them as well. And yeah, there's some challenges with, moving in a new home and not being as close to your friends and those types of things. But at the end of the day, I think we got the space we needed for the life that we were meant to move into.
Yeah.
We're grateful for where we were. And it's funny because so many people are still like, oh, do you ever go by your old house? And have you seen the old house? And I think if you've ever had a family home, especially like I was, where I was in that home for over 40 years, it's not that I need to drive by it every day.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the time that I had there. I'm grateful for that home and what it provided to my family. But I'm excited about where I am now. I don't need to live in the past. I'm really enjoying this home where we are, and the freedom to dream a dream that's ours, like the farm on it.
And by the way, Christian and his family that bought our house from us feel the same way about that place. That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We passed it on to a young family that has, put their own, tag on it and created what they wanted for their dream home. And it's wonderful. It's so great to see that what we were experiencing, they have experienced also.
Yeah. And I think, the real estate market, we got to get Dawn back on, because the real estate market is still exploding.
Yeah.
I am grateful we sold and bought when we did, because now the prices have gone up $150,000 more.
And the interest rates are going up.
And the interest rates are going up. But let me tell you our biggest shock, and this will shock you all. We're in an area that's a high fire zone area in California. And we were having a week. It was a hard week a couple weeks ago with clients and kids. And if you name it, it was coming down on me. And I had about 1 ounce of energy left to deal with another problem. And I got an email that said, your homeowner's insurance payment is coming up. And it was for an amount that was the full amount. And we, have it on a payment broken out. And so I called them up and I said, I just want to have the payment broken out again and not pay this in lump sum. And they said, that is your broken out payment. And I was like, no, that's my annual. And they said, no, your policy's been reviewed and we have increased it by $14,000 because of your location. People. I don't know if you've ever had your homeowner's insurance go up to $16,000 on you overnight, but that is what happened to us. And let me tell you, I about fell out of the chair, went in the fetal position because I could not handle any more stress on that Friday.
Yeah, and we knew when we bought last year, like our regular insurance wasn't covering the area. That's something they just changed last year, so we knew going into the home it was a little bit of a struggle. The cost wasn't substantially different than what we expected, but when
On
this
the
came
original policy.
on the original policy, but when this came around, it was like, you got to be kidding me. And so we started making phone calls to local brokers, and no one can cover, and I'm like, there's got to be another way, and just happened to call AAA, and AAA, I tell you, we've been members for a long time. Usually just use them for like car registration and some travel stuff. But man, I tell you, they came back in with a price that was not far off from our original price, which is fantastic. And they're like, nope, you are 3 streets away from the edge of the fire zone, and this and that. And no, we can cover you. And no issues. And I asked so many questions of this lady. I think she was completely annoyed.
We were so afraid.
But I didn't want to be those things. Well, something happens and like, oh, I'm sorry, you weren't covered by that. And they're like, no, you are completely covered. You are good to go. So what an absolute blessing to go from actual shock of like, how the heck are we going to do this?
For 7 days. For 7 days, we were on a waiting plan to see if our broker was going to be able to get us into the California Fair Plan, which is only fair for California. It is not fair for the homeowner.
Right. It's California, the state.
It's the insurance you have to get when you live in a zone that is deemed uninsurable by California.
Oh my gosh.
So
what a mess
that would have
was.
been $8,000 compared to our $2,500 we were paying. So thank you to David for saving the day. But that was another week of like gut bomb.
Yeah.
So other than that, I think that, in hindsight, anyone thinking about buying and selling, we talked about it a lot. Go back and listen to the update or the sale from a year ago. But have extra cash. Have extra cash on hand for the things that you're going to want to do to the house. And we put so much into it and so much down, and there's so many dreams and things that we need to do. And so it's like finding that balance of how do you dream and how do you actually get the house up to where you want it to be. So,
and it's not going to happen overnight or even in a year, but you can make huge progress.
You might have a farm after a year.
Right. Absolutely.
It's fun though. Yeah, go check it out. But the house is fun, and you'll get to see a little bit of it if you go onto the Barn SD, and you can see the progress. What else is on your mind?
Well, I'm going to get political for a minute.
Oh, David's doing politics.
I just and we've talked about this before, seeing you in the construction industry, and you and Sandy and Linda and Sheila, and how women are treated differently in the construction realm. It just is. It's, mostly men, and even in leadership is women 10% or something like
5%
that. 5%
of women in the field, and then only 10% of those women are in leadership.
Yeah, so the numbers are really
so
small.
1% maybe?
Yeah, 1% maybe. And women for so many years have been fighting for the equality in the pay, the responsibility, the respect, and all these things. And it's been so important, and there's just been rally after rally, year after year, different focuses on this and that to get the equality there. And it just blows my mind that all of a sudden you can be a dude claiming that you're a girl, win this massive NCAA swimming event, and be crowned the champion. It just diminishes the rights that we've been fighting for so many years for women. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. It just makes no sense to me. Now, I get the equality all the way around, but this seems a little bit different. It's just like we didn't like stick our foot over the edge to test the water. We like jumped in, like cannonballed in, like this is going to be okay and everyone's going to be fine with it. And it's just crazy. As a woman, how does it make you feel?
Gosh, I think we're pretty reserved, but that one on sharing our opinion, reserved in sharing our opinion publicly. Yeah. We are not like, let me express it on Facebook, but this is our podcast. This is where we're getting real on what's on our mind. That one to me, as a woman, I feel more and more every day like the generations that came before me to get me to a place where I could own a company and dream big dreams and have all these rights are starting to fall to the wayside
Yeah.
by having people who can identify now as a woman stepping in and taking on those victories and taking on those championships. I think what you do individually is one thing, and I don't really have an opinion on who you want to call yourself, who you want to be. You have a right to be whoever you want to be.
You be you.
But when it comes to women's sporting events, to me, you're basically saying to women at that point, it doesn't matter how you were born. It doesn't matter how athletic you are. Anyone that I now identifies as a female that maybe wasn't winning when they were a male, is just going to come and take over. So don't try. And what are we saying to young girls? Like, don't try, because there could be a man that comes in and says he's a woman and takes your spot one day. And I think that we're just not, I'm not at a place where that makes sense yet. And that's just part of my growth. Maybe that makes sense to you. Maybe you feel like this is so offensive. But I found a majority of people were having similar reactions. And you watched this on media, you watched it all over the place where this was not celebrated. And I just feel like there's this movement forward, but sometimes steps just go too far. And to me, that one went way too far. And as a female, I want my children to be able to look at me and know that I have a right to be their mom and to be called mom, and that I gave birth to them, and that this was part of God's plan for me. And they're not going to call me anything other than that. And I think that's part of it. It's like, don't erase women to give someone else equality, right?
Yeah, and I would also say the other women in that competition that have worked so hard and are the fastest in the world, they don't have a chance.
Not a chance.
I mean, you
just
you
look
put,
at the size. Go look at the size difference.
Yeah, there's just no chance. So if I'm a woman athlete coming up and I'm been working on this my entire life, and I finally get to the competition at that level and realize that no matter how hard I try, I will never be able to make it if this is how the rules are now. I mean, there's just so many things in the world going through, again, the pandemic and everything else that are mentally and spiritually and socially hurting people. It's just another one. And it's just really too bad that for everything we've been through for this last couple of years, that you throw this one in the mix too and just say, hey, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're not going to be able to win at this level.
Yeah, and the irony is we're in a month of celebrating women.
Right.
And this is what's coming out. It's like, oh, round of applause. We celebrate how great you all are. And then, by the way, we're going to start to strip it away, right? Yeah. We're going to start to strip your identity away. We're going to start to strip away what people call you, what rights you have. I mean, the fact that as a female, I can be in a locker room and a man who identifies as a woman can just decide that day. And maybe they don't really identify as a woman, but they just want to be in the locker room with women. And how uncomfortable is that? I mean, if you men were in your locker rooms and women just started coming in because we wanted to, and you're naked and we're just coming in, how are you going to be like, cool, this is cool? No, you're not. You're going to be like, what's going on here? And I think for women, we cannot forget that we spend our lives being taught you are this thing, and you are always going to be fighting to break a glass ceiling, to be heard, to have a seat at the table, all these things. And now it's like, okay, but you might not ever really get there.
Yeah.
And again, all these women that came before me that worked so hard, I think that this is just a hard season, and we're going to be the generation that's going to help to define what women look like in the future. And hopefully it's not that we're all just like X's and Y's.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, we had to talk about it. I think it's really, really important, but how about we turn on and turn to something a little bit lighter?
What's that?
Well, just, other thing that are on our mind. And, we started this podcast dreaming big. Mm-hmm. And we right now are in a position in our business where we're trying to teach our team more and more about being high performance and looking at the big picture and not getting so focused on the little things. And I think, I definitely struggle with this. It's a lot of times easier to just dive back into what you're comfortable with and the things you might even be good at and realize 6 months later you're still in the same place you were. And what we've challenged ourselves with and what we're challenging our team with is to look bigger, go bigger, try things that you're a little uncomfortable with, or maybe a lot uncomfortable with, to get that growth. Because there's and I'll have to say, not everyone is interested in growing. They're just not. They're content where they're at, and that's cool. That's fine. For our business, we're not content and cool, and that's not fine, because we want to get better, serve our clients better, be more efficient, high performance, all those things. And so trying to adapt that mindset isn't easy, but important.
Yeah, we've had about the last 4 weeks, we've really been challenging our team. We listened to a great TED Talk by Adam Grant on languishing. And if you have not listened to his TED Talk, it's 15 minutes long, and it was very impactful for our team. And it's really just talking about giving a name to what we've all been going through right now. And so languishing really is, that almost where you're stuck. Like you're searching for joy. You have energy, but you're not moving. You have a drive, but no desire to actually chase a goal anymore. And you'd rather just sit and binge watch Netflix and live someone else's life than be an active participant in yours. And that's really called languishing. You're missing the joy in your everyday and your purpose in it all. And that's just coming from the 2 years of what we were forced to go through, but now you have to come out of it. And so we've spent the last 4 weeks really trying to figure out, how do we get them back to realizing what their performance looked like 2 years ago and what we're seeing now, and to challenge them that, to be a peak performer, you got to show up. You got to show up for yourself and show up for your job. And by the way, this isn't a given. You're held accountable to what you're doing. And that means change your work ethic a little bit. Figure out how to reset. Figure out how you set time for focus time and not just cruising your way into the office and going through your 8 hours. And on one of the upcoming podcasts, we're going to talk about implementing a shorter work week and how we're trying to do that and how some of it's working and some of it's failing and why. So it is just all these variables. And I got to say, it's exhausting. It's exhausting because we are also languishing. We are also looking for joy. We are also looking for meaning and purpose in this life again that was really going really well and then just halts. And then you're putting all this energy into keeping it alive and stable. And now you're just I'm tired.
Right. But on the other hand, we are seeing good momentum for opportunities this year and moving forward. So that's why we're kind of putting our foot down now. It's now's the time to shift back into high performance.
Yeah.
And what's it going to take to get there? And it's been quite interesting to go through this process and, see where we're going to see what's going to happen, not only with our business, but the businesses around, because we're not the only company that is dealing with this. Everyone is dealing with this right now. So as Sarah said, we, not afraid to take some risks and step into things and try things out. And the shorter work week was something that we definitely wanted to implement, and we did, and have learned some things.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So I think that work is in a different space than it was. And if you're a leader and you don't acknowledge that,
Yes.
you're going to be left behind. And that great resignation is happening because people do not have purpose in what they're doing. You can throw money, you can throw a bonus, you can throw flexibility. It is not going to matter. If they are not tied to the purpose that shows them how they're impacting their world by doing the work they're doing, they are going to leave your organization. And so I think that we're in a state where we are just constantly kind of turning and adjusting and trying to figure out, how do we get this team back? How do we get ourselves motivated? And how do we all move forward? Because we've got, like David said, great opportunities. We can't drag you with. You got to want to come. And what happens if they don't?
Then we're just going to go to the bar in San Diego.
We're all going to be broke, but we'll have flowers. So that's a lot on what's on our mind. And if we offended you, we apologize. I'm sure there's a podcast out there for you. This is not what every day looks like. But at the end of the day, as leaders, our goal always is to be transparent, be truthful, and have a little honesty along the way. So that's what today was.
We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!